Good morning. It's Sunday morning. This is the 10th of September. I just was out of town for a few days and I'm back, and I want to show you how quickly you can analyze the market and come up with a few prospects on the long side. So I'll go ahead and go through the process. You don't have to spend hours prospecting, you can do it in a pretty short amount of time. Once again, here's my standard risk disclaimer. Any stock, index, or ETF mentioned in this presentation is not a recommendation to buy or sell. All trading strategies are used at your own risk. Now, I don't have anything laid out on my screen. I'm going to open the software, and these are coming up in the layout that I last closed. Now I have to change the charts. I'm going to begin with a market analysis. So I'm going to go into my user groups, my market analysis user groups, click on the first folder, click through to the warehouse, and now I have to go up here, top-down process for index and ETF analysis. Click on that, and I'm going to take a look at the NASDAQ chart, so I have to go up to market charts. I'm going to click on the number two chart. It's market internals, and this is one I just put in last week. And the reason I did this is I wanted to see the NASDAQ. Let me get the correct symbol up here, of course. I need to go to the Major Markets Plus, and I'm going to look at the NASDAQ composite on here. Now, the NASDAQ composite is shown up in the top window and the volume, but what I want to do is have a comparison between the NYSE advancing declining stocks, which is right here. Okay, this is the NASDAQ, the NYSE advancing versus declining stocks. If you go over here to the right, you can see the comparison. On the NASDAQ, the decliners were coming down from the prior day and the advancers were going up. The NYSE, they've come together. Now the next two windows are advancing versus declining volume on the NASDAQ and the NYSE. You can see the declining volume was going down and the advancing volumes going up for the NASDAQ and the NYSE. New highs, new lows are the final two windows. On the NASDAQ, the number of new highs is going down, but the number of new lows, you can see the line turned down for both the NASDAQ and the NYSE. Now, if the chart itself, I'll zoom in on this a little bit with the alternate 1 key. You can see that the NASDAQ had a decent rally here, and it's been pulling back for 1, 2, 3 days, and Friday it tried to go up and it was rejected, and we got a no demand, a sign of weakness. And the reason that is there is because volume was light. Now I'm going to change to the chart above so we can just look at the NASDAQ and see this a little bit better. But the volume was below average. It's been below average for several days, so there's just not a lot of conviction one way or the other. But looking at these internals, it doesn't look too bad, really. It after the sell-off here, you can see it's turning up on the advancing versus declining stock, and the same thing on the NYSE and the advancing versus declining volume. Now, I took 2 or 3 minutes to say that. I would know that in 15 seconds if I weren't talking. Now, looking at the this was obviously going up, and it's going down here now. If this comes back and is able to break through this down arrow, I think we have a chance to go higher. Why do I say that? I'm going to say this is a low here, this is a low here. That was taken out. Here's a high, but this low here is higher than this low here. So it needs, if it can break this down trend line, and even surpass this here, it has a good chance going up. But obviously, we don't know what the market's going to do. I'm just looking at it from the internals perspective. Now let's go look at it a different way. I'm going to go into my broad market indices. I'll click through to this, and now I'm going to go to a series of charts that I put in here years ago. And let's take a look at the S&P 500. I'll use the 500. Everybody's familiar with the 500. So what do we have here? This is A and E crossover. The distribution is still going on that because the A's are going down and the E's are going up. Here's A plus B, the green. Here's D plus E. They're still showing signs of distribution. As I go down here, this just shows the rolling in and out of accumulation. The D's are still going down. The E's are going up. Now remember, we're doing the S&P 500, and I don't see a lot of accumulation in here. So now what I'm doing is I'm going through the internals. This is distribution here also on the Chaikin money flow. So I'm still seeing distribution. So what this does is it gives us insight into actually what's going on with these indexes that are created by HGSI. I got a little off track there. Sorry about that. I got away from the S&P. I clicked on the wrong window. So here is the advancers versus decliners. You can see the actual numbers here on the S&P 500 for Friday. There are 262 advancers, 230 decliners. We saw that on the bigger chart. So the advancers are slightly outpacing the decliners. And then going down to the next one, the percent above the 20-day moving average, the 30-day moving average, percent above the 50 and above the 200. And you can see most of these are either flat or going down. So that's not too bullish. It's neutral to bearish because this hasn't turned up again like it did here. Now this is the buy sell. There's obviously no buy or sell here. This is the same version without the fan. And this is a little closer look at the index advanced decline line using the S&P 500. You can see the AD line has been going down, but it's trying to turn up here, which pretty much corresponds with the overall view of the market. And this is a percent above the 50-day, their 50-day moving averages. And it's flat. It's neither up or down. Maybe a slight down, but nothing very bullish about it, but pretty neutral, I would say. And then this is just another view that I have that shows the internals. This is number 8 and the AD line again. Force indexes are turning up slightly. Pretty neutral though. And then here we get into the McClellan oscillator. You can see that it was moving up. It rolled over, but it's starting to turn up again. And here is what I call a trend chart, and it shows the accumulation distribution up here. It's pretty flat in here, still D distribution, so not real positive. Obviously, we're not in a bullish market. We're in a flat to neutral market with the accumulation turning up just a little bit. Now, normally I would look at a few other indexes, but I'm not going to take the time to do that. What's my conclusion from looking at the market? It is trying to hold here, I would say. It's maybe slightly bullish, but more neutral. But it's not a disaster. There's not tremendous amounts of selling but also there's not a lot of interest in the broader market. And I say that because the volume continues to be very low as we go, or as we get further and further into September. So let's say I'm looking for some bullish stocks, even though the broader markets are not exactly bullish, but you can see that there were more slightly more advancers than decliners. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the power of HGSI, and I'm going to click on my alternate space bar, and that's going to take me into all securities. I'm going to change this chart. I'm going to get out of these index charts, and I'm going to go down into my charts here, number 4 folder. This is a chart I use the most, and I'm going to bring up the quick pick here, and I put these in here for the webinar I just did. Instant watch list. You don't want to spend all day looking for stocks. It's a waste of energy, and you'll find it very hard to make a decision. So I'm going to go in here, instant watch list 25 stocks. Now I'm going to click on undercut end of day setting up after pullback. What do I mean by that? I mean that the stock has pulled back and it's setting up. The 3 has not crossed the 6. You can see the pressure is coming off though, because this is turned back up. If you look up here, I'll move in on it. There was a strength seen returning, and then here's a confirmation of that strength with an effort to rise. I'll make this full screen so you can see it better. But if I click on this, strength seen returning after a downtrend, and then an effort to rise and a confirmation of that strength, and the industry group, marine shipping, is turning up. So this sold off hard. You can see that buyers stepped in here right above the 100-day, and the pressure is coming off. So it's a potential trade. It's got resistance above it, no doubt about it. But I'm limiting my views here to these 25 stocks. Now let's look at Sprouts Farmers Market. I'll bring it up. You can see the pullback was not nearly as deep. The group started to turn up on Friday. We have an effort to rise. This is another good candidate. What is the relative strength? It's 89. It's a number 10 box stock. It's got resistance across here though. It's an okay looking stock. Let's look at one more. Rycor Systems. I don't know this stock. It's a cheap stock, but it had a nice move up here. You can see that it's holding at the 18-day, and the 3 is below the 6, but it's turning up. Now, if I want to limit what I'm looking at, I'm in all securities here, but let's say that I want to use my user SmartGroups and get in here and look for stocks that are in one of these SmartGroups. Now, remember, I'm still in the 25 stocks, but I want to look at stocks. I'm going to open up my folder here. If you're an Insider Club member, you have this. I'm going to look for what are CanSlim stocks and see if anything comes up. Nothing comes up in this pullback. Let's look. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't go down far enough. CanSlim type stocks, all. And then these are crossing over here. But I'm in this user group, which is generated every day automatically during the update process. And these are the stocks that are CanSlim type stocks. And look what's on top, Frontline. So if I open this up, I know immediately that there's earnings and revenue growth with this stock. And look at these numbers. Look at the growth. And it's a $17 stock. Let's bring this up again. It had a really nice move up. The group kind of rolled over, and now there's some buying interest in the group. I would certainly consider putting this in the watch list. Let's look at the next stock. This is another marine shipping stock. And look at the earnings growth on this stock. Now this pulled back pretty sharply like the frontline stock did, but it's setting up also. Once again, same group. It's turning up. Let's just go down the list here. International Seaways, Insurance Services. This really nice move up here. Profit taking, found support at the 100-day. No supply here. Starting to move up. The group is flat. The 3 and the 6 negative, but see how the pressure has come off here on the 3 versus the 6. It's about ready to cross over. Let's go down to Greenbrier companies. I haven't been pointing out the weekly chart, but I will here. So the Greenbrier, the group was weak. It's come down, gap down, stopping volume on here. It's setting up again. It's got some work to do to get through that gap, but it's a potential. Let's look at the weekly on it. The weekly doesn't look that great. Probably stay away from that. STLA came down hard. Earnings, there's not a real long earnings history on this. It is under accumulation, though. You can tell that. Here's 2 stopping volumes, and it hasn't broken down. It's worth putting in a watch list. The group is flat. Okay, so I'm going to stay with this CanSlim group, and I'm going to bring this up. And these are setting up after a pullback in the top 25. Now I'm going to look see if there's any crossovers. So this is undercut 3-day crossing the 6, and there is one stock. So I'll bring it up. Let's make it full screen. You can see it's been under accumulation here for several days. The 3 managed to cross the 6 right here. And it had strength coming in and a confirmation of that strength. It's got a lot of resistance through here. It's got to get through all that, but it did cross over. Okay, so that's one group that I looked at. Now I'm still using these 2. There's 25 stocks in here, and these stocks that I'm showing you have to be included in those 25 stocks, but then I'm using a secondary scan to limit what I'm looking for. So these are all CanSlim types, and let's go down here. I'm going to use the Perfect Speculator and see what comes up. These are all stocks that are broken out to, they're within 5% of their 52 weeks high, 52-week high, and they've broken out recently and then pulled back a little bit. So let's go through. Let's click through on this. Get this out of the way. There's Sprouts Farmers Market. I looked at that already. Here's a new one. Allison Transmission, ALSN. Look at the earnings and revenue growth. The slope is up on these. This is a nice, strong weekly chart on Allison Transmission. Make this full screen. It broke out, and then you can see the VPA flags signaled a downturn. But it is setting up again because it is in this user group. It's a Perfect Speculator stock that recently broke out, pulled back, setting up again. It's worth putting in the watch list. KLA 10 Core. Let's look at it. Here's the recent 52-week high right there. You can see it cleared, pulled back a little bit, and setting up again. Expensive stock. How about Ship Finance? Marine Shipping, another shipping stock. Now look at the strength in this weekly chart here. Tremendous. Just a little pullback. This is setting up nicely. There was some profit taking that came into it, but this one is definitely going into a watch list. So this is undercut setting up after a pullback. Now these are stocks in the Perfect Speculator group that crossed over. Notice in the past 2 days. Notice this column right here. It's either a 0 or a 1. Hilton. Let's run through these quickly. Here's the crossover right here. Here's the weekly chart. A little bit sloppy, but it crossed over. Marriott, they're both in the same group, so this group, it's turned up. Looks like it wants to go up too. Evercore, it crossed over yesterday. The zeros mean it crossed over on Friday. This one's setting up nicely. VMware, setting up nicely. These are all fairly expensive stocks. Look at the strength on the weekly chart. Here's a REIT, kind of loose. Trade web markets. This is really a tight chart. The weekly chart has been strong at some congestion right here, but now it looks like it wants to go again. Wealth management. Let's make this full screen. Look at this nice run here, and then it's been digesting that for a long time. Broke out to a new high. Pulled back a little bit, setting up nicely. Remember, I'm in the perfect speculator stocks. These stocks are within 5% of their 52-week high. Aflac Insurance, setting up. Ares Capital. Yeah, it's got some resistance here, but it is setting up. Notice how tight the moving averages are, the weekly chart. Don't like the weekly chart as much. And Circor International, this is a flow control. This is a buyout when you see this. Just not out of the database yet. So anyway, that's a quick way to assess the markets, and just look for some stocks that are automatically updated every day in this folder right here. Instant watch list 25 stocks, and then you can apply these stocks to any subgroup. And I like to use the CanSlim, Perfect Speculator, because strong stocks. Here's the HGS box stocks, leaders. Let's do that quickly, see what shows up. Sprouts, Allison, we looked at both of those. This is undercut. Setting up to pull back, and these are crossing over. Hilton, VMware, and Ollie's bargain. Yeah, this is not exactly trending up too strongly, is it? But my point is, you can use these other groups to narrow your list down. If you're only interested in large cap stocks, I put market cap in here. That's another way to go about it. If you're only interested in large caps, all of these are large cap stocks that passed the undercut and the 3 crossing the 6. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Just some ideas. You don't have to spend a lot of time. I mean, all my time here is spent talking. I could do this in 5 to 10 minutes, and that's really all you need to spend every day to at least find 1 or 2 good candidates. Now, I looked at the long side only. I haven't set up the groups on the short side. Well, I have, but they're not in this instant watch list here. Thanks for listening. Have a good week. The market's pretty neutral, but we're seeing a little sign of accumulation in some of the indexes. Thanks for listening. Like I said, have a good week.